Grab you a seat and come over here. Grab a chair and just sit here.
Okay. But it wasn't even that bad. I don't know why.
Are you all in the same grade?
I can see what you're doing.
Will I do the same?
Yeah. Just sit here and smile.
I'm about to press it. Wait, am I on camera?
Yeah, you're on camera.
Why?
This is not
I can see you.
I don't want to be on camera.
make sure. That's gotta stay, not you.
All right. Hey. Thank you so much for having us. And on top of that, it's gonna rain all spring break. Really? So if you're gonna go back into the picture, and they need to cancel the rodeo. They want to cancel their
Seats right here. Okay, Adrian, could you go mute, please? Okay, you're on with South Africa and a couple other countries plus. He'll introduce himself to you from the consul. We have two consuls here, consulates here, one from Mexico and one from Ireland, and Paul's going to be screening this stuff here today. Okay? Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Paul, and I work in the Irish Consulate here in Austin. And as Mr. Cunningham said, Ireland is one of two countries with a consulate here in the city of Austin. And if you're not familiar with what a consulate is, we're like an embassy, and most countries will have their embassy in the city of a country. So most countries in the world will have their embassy in Washington, D.C. But because the United States is so big, many countries will also have a consulate in other cities that are important, very important cities. And so we have 7 consulates throughout the United States in Washington. Our consulate is very small. Myself and one other colleague, we're both diplomats. And then we have 2 other staff, 2 Texans who work for us as well and help us with all the local expertise. And really, really varied. We do everything from trying to improve political relations in my country of Ireland and the United States and Texas. And we also do things like we give services to Irish citizens. So if an Irish citizen gets in trouble while they're traveling in the United States, or they lose their passport, or they end up in hospital or something serious happens, the Irish government has a responsibility to look after their citizens when they're traveling in the United States. So that's part of my job too. And then I do a lot of other things as well. We talk to people if they want a visa to go to Ireland, so maybe a US citizen or a citizen of another country that's interested in going to Ireland. Sometimes they'll call my office for advice. I go all over this part of the United States, to different groups that are interested in learning about Ireland. So we cover 7 states. So travel a lot talking about Ireland to people. people who are just generally interested in Irish culture, or maybe people who are interested in visiting Ireland for tourism, lots of different things. But I thought what I'd do is I'll go through a few information here about Ireland, but please stop me at any stage if you have questions. I'm here to answer all of your questions. I know one of my colleagues visited this high school recently. I know we have a couple of other high schools on the line as well. But what do you know about Ireland at the moment, or what are you interested about finding out?
What part of Ireland are you from?
Yeah, great question. I'm from Dublin, which is the capital of Ireland. Ireland is a country of about 5 million people, and Dublin is the largest city, the capital city. The population is a little bit under 2 million in Dublin, so a huge percentage of our population. Yes. That's a great question. Yeah, really, really good question. So the island of Ireland is separated into two different states. So I'm from the country that's known as Ireland, but there is another part of the island of Ireland called Northern Ireland, which is has its own parliament, but is also part of the United Kingdom. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Anything else? Yes.
Like, how are the rural communities different in Ireland?
Yeah.
It's small, very small villages.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Until about 20 years ago, Ireland was most of the population were living in rural communities, and in the last 20 years, we've had a lot of economic development, and the population of Dublin has got really, really large. And some of the rural communities they're in decline, and it's a big challenge for our government to figure out how they can protect rural life while still having good economic development. So it's a real challenge. Yeah, there's lots of different things that we're trying to do. I mean, tourism is one great way to keep people living in rural communities because some of the most beautiful parts of Ireland are the rural parts of Ireland, and if there are employment opportunities for people in those rural communities, that's a good way of keeping a balance between people living in cities and people living in rural communities. But it's a big challenge. It's a challenge all over the world, and it's a challenge in Ireland as well. Okay, so I'll get started here because I know I'm under time pressure, but how do I put this into the full screen? What's the slides? There we go, yeah. Okay, so so Ireland is part of the European Union. There were 28 members of the European Union until about, I want to say 6 weeks ago, when the United Kingdom left. You've probably heard the word Brexit before. So for the last few years, that's been a big issue in Europe as the United Kingdom had voted to leave the European Union. And that made things really difficult for Ireland because, as was mentioned, there are two states on the island of Ireland. Northern Ireland is now no longer part of the European Union, but Ireland, where I'm from, is. So that has been a big challenge. But the European Union has been great for Ireland, and we joined in 1973. At that time, people had education opportunities in Ireland, the opportunity to study in technical colleges or universities, quite rare. Even for my parents, they didn't even have the opportunity to finish high school. So, in the European Union really gave people in Ireland an opportunity to continue their education. And there was a lot of emigration from Ireland as well. There weren't a lot of jobs in Ireland when we joined the European Union in 1973. And today Ireland is, it's a much more advanced economy. So people don't have to leave Ireland as much as they used to look for employment. So in general, the European Union has been very good for Ireland. No big global organization is perfect, and the European Union definitely has areas where it could improve. But for Ireland in general, our European Union membership has been a good thing. So Ireland again, there were two states on the island of Ireland, and that goes back to when Ireland got its independence 100 years ago. And that pocket in Northern Ireland at the time, those people identified more as being British than being Irish at the time. And they wanted to remain part of the United Kingdom, so with Scotland, Wales, and England. And that has been a major issue in Ireland for the last 100 years. And it is something that we're very sensitive about at the moment because of Brexit as well. And we can talk a little bit about that as well. The island itself historically is split up into four ancient provinces. Ulster, and then within that, we're all divided into, the whole island is divided into 32 counties. So I'm from the city of Dublin, which is also in the county of Dublin, but then there are 31 other counties as well between Ireland and Northern Ireland, and they're kind of historic counties more so than political regions. I love history, and I could talk about this all day, but my colleagues told me that I have a tendency to bore people when I talk too much about history. So this is a history of Ireland, 7,000 years in one slide, and I'm going to go through it really, really quickly. So we're a very, we're a young country. We've only had independence for 100 years, but there have been people living on the island of Ireland for 7,000 years. And so in the 6th century BC, 2,600 years ago, the Celtic invaders arrived in Ireland. In around the 15th century, the introduction of Christianity came to Ireland, and that's associated with St. Patrick. You've probably heard of St. Patrick's Day. So,
I'm gonna watch this real quick. I'll be right back.
St. Patrick arrived in Ireland. The Vikings, I don't know if anybody's watched those. There's a couple of Viking TV shows that are very popular at the moment. But the Vikings settled Dublin and a few other parts of Ireland as well, around the 9th and 10th century. So in the city I'm from, there's a huge Viking influence. There's been lots of architectural digs that have discovered lots of really interesting artifacts from that era. The Normans arrived around 800 years ago, and that was really the first time that people came from the island of Britain and settled on the island of Ireland. Continued for a number of decades, but it really accelerated in the 17th century with what we call plantations. And that's where people came from England and Scotland, and they were land in Ireland. The King of England at the time said that Ireland was part of Britain and Ireland, and he gave the land to people from England and Scotland who settled on the island of Ireland. In the centuries that followed, there was some rebellions, some Irish people that were fighting for their independence. And much like the United States had a war of independence throughout the 1700s, 1800s, and into the early 1900s, about 100 years ago, there were movements and calls for independence throughout the United Ireland. 100 years ago, we had a major event in 1916. There was another rebellion and call for independence. And in the years that followed after that, Ireland got a degree of independence. In 22, we became an independent country. But the island was partitioned, so Northern Ireland remained with Britain, and the rest of the island where I'm from became. This will really apply to you in the room, but just to give you an idea about how Ireland compares to Texas, Ireland is about 1/10 the size of Texas in terms of the lands that we occupy. So, we're a tiny, tiny little island in comparison to the size of your country. Our population is much smaller than Texas. Hope that's not me that caused this. So our population is about 5 million people on the island of Ireland. 5 million people in Ireland, the country, and then 6 million people on the island. So about 1 million people in Northern Ireland. So a very small population in comparison to Texas. I think the population of Texas is about 28 million. So we are a small country, very, very small country. I can talk a little bit about the economy and stuff, but in general, our economy is quite good for a small country. Our two biggest trading partners are the United Kingdom, which is our closest country, obviously, and the United States is our second biggest Our government is very different to your government here. We have a parliamentary democracy. So I could talk about this in great length, but just to say really that our president is more of a ceremonial role. Our president doesn't have the executive power. We have a prime minister who we call our Taoiseach. We have our own language in Ireland, and we call our prime minister the Taoiseach. And our prime minister is a member of the parliament, so like a member of your Congress here, or a member of your state capital maybe. So he's just one member of parliament, but he has been elected the leader of the parliament, and then he serves as the prime minister. And that's the person in Ireland who has most of the executive power in terms of governance, which is a very different system to your system here in the United States, where your president has a lot of executive power and your three branches of government. I'm sorry that the people down here can't see this, but this is a photograph of our president of Ireland. Our president of Ireland, he was a poet before he was a politician. He did serve in our parliament before he became president, but his profession was he was a poet, which is I think quite unusual in the world to have a president who's a poet. He has been our president for the last 8 years. Our presidents can serve 2 terms of 7 years. So again, different year system here of 2 years, 2 terms of 4 years. And our president's name is Michael T. Higgins. And I'm sorry, again, you can't see the photographs here, but these are his 2 dogs, Broda and Shioda. And that means, Broda is the Irish word for pride, and Shioda is the Irish word for silk. So that's the name of the dogs. Again, this is my team here in the consulate. We're a very small team. There is myself and Claire, who is the consul general, and we're both from Ireland. I'm from Dublin, and Claire is from Cork, the second biggest city in Ireland. And these are our other 2 colleagues, Cecilia and Laura, who are both from Texas, and they're very important parts of our team because they give us that expertise here to operate here in Texas. So I work for the consulate, but back in Ireland, I'm part of the Irish Foreign Service, which is like the equivalent of your United States State Department. And so your United States State Department runs embassies and consulates all around the world. And likewise, the Irish Foreign Service in Ireland oversees all of our embassies and consulates. And our foreign policy has kind of 5 key pillars. The first thing is our people. So because Ireland was quite a poor country until about 20 or 30 years ago, there was a huge amount of emigration. For hundreds of years, Irish people have been leaving Ireland and going all around the world. And because of that, we estimate that there are 70 million people around the world today of Irish descent. And there are only 5 million people on the island. So we feel like there are more Irish people, people of Irish descent living around the world than there are actually on the island of Ireland today. And we have 5 million people in our population. We have 1 million people who were born in Ireland living abroad today. So we really are a country that is, and a people that are scattered all around the world. And so a core part of our foreign policy is to serve those Irish people around the world. And I'll show you some photographs of different events we do to interact with people of Irish descent all around the world. Our values is another part of our foreign policy. So we're committed to international organizations like the United Nations and the European Union and other multilateral organizations. And that's a key part of our foreign policy. And we feel that because we have had famines in Ireland, and we have had a history of people having to emigrate for centuries, that we have a shared experience with many countries in the world. And we feel that we can bring those values to the global stage and help add something to the conversation about big international issues like climate change and migration of people today, and big global shifts. So we feel that we're a small country, but we have a global perspective. So that's part of our foreign policy as well. The next part of our foreign policy is called our prosperity, and that is connected to our economy. Our diplomats and our consulates and our embassies also have a job to try and encourage people to trade with Ireland and try and encourage economic links between Texas and Ireland, in my case. Our place in Europe is another part of our foreign policy, so we're really committed to our European Union membership, and that's a big element of our foreign policy as well. And our influence is the final part of our foreign policy, and that's to do with the political links. So, part of our job here is to meet with either people who are involved in politics already in Texas or the United States, or to meet with people who might become involved with politics in the future, and to look at demographic changes and things like that, and try ensure that in the future Ireland will have a strong relationship with the future leaders of Texas, Boston, the United States. So that's a big part of our job too, and we call that our influence. So I'm really sorry for the people who can't see this. Maybe if I'm not sure if I turn this, it'll really make much of a difference. But this is a photograph from an event that we did at the consulate about a year ago. So, a big part of our job in connecting with those people of Irish descent is to talk about our culture. There are lots of the origins of Halloween originated in Ireland, and we brought a storyteller over to do an event with some members of the Irish community here in Texas to talk about ancient kind of Halloween stories that originated in Ireland. And that was connected to our people, which is part of our foreign policy. This was an event that we did in the consulate about a year ago as well. And that was for the International Day of Peace. And we had students from Austin Community College and the University of Texas come to have a talk about International Day of Peace. So again, that's a topic that Ireland has something to add to. When I was a kid and I was growing up in Ireland, there was essentially a war taking place in Northern Ireland, a major conflict about whether Northern Ireland should be part of Ireland or it should be part of Britain. And it got very violent, and it was a very dark time in our history in Ireland. And, so thankfully we've had a peace deal now for the last 20 years, and it has worked quite well. So, when it comes to things like the United Nations International Day of Peace, we feel that we have a story to tell about the peace process in Ireland, and how that was achieved, and how it's never fully achieved, that it's always a work in progress. Peace is a very fragile thing, and we have to really be very careful with that in Northern Ireland and ensure that that peace is protected. And this is to do with our prosperity, which again is to do with improving the economic links between the country where our consulates are and Ireland. And this is a photograph from Dallas-Fort Worth Airport last year, when we launched the first direct flight between Dallas and Dublin. And that was with American Airlines last year. So that was that. This is a photograph from an event that we did at Texas A&M University in College Station, where we had several of the consul generals. They're like the ambassadors here in Texas from European Union countries, and they talked about the European Union and kind of the big issues going on in the European Union at the moment. And then this is to do with our influence, and this is our Prime Minister, our Taoiseach, when he visited Austin 2 years ago during South by Southwest, so almost exactly 2 years ago. And this is him when he was meeting with the governor. We have embassies, we have about 90 embassies and consulates all around the world. And as I said, we have our embassy in Washington, and then we have 7 consulates throughout the United States. And we locate those consulates and embassies based on, areas that we think are strategically important. So maybe somewhere where there's good economic links, or maybe somewhere where there's lots of people of Irish descent, and the embassy can do something to help them connect with their culture. So Anglo-Irish relations is a big part of our work. So that's to do with Northern Ireland. As I said, when I was a kid growing up in Ireland, it was a really, really difficult time. I remember as a child listening to the radio and hearing about bombs exploding in Northern Ireland, and terrible tragedies where a lot of innocent people lost their lives. And in 1998, with the help of a former United States senator who brokered talks, a peace deal was signed between the people of Ireland the people of the United Kingdom, and most importantly, the communities living in Northern Ireland. And they secured a peace deal. And it's for the last 22 years, it has worked quite well, but it's never finished. The other photograph that you can't really see here is the Queen of Ireland visiting in 2011. That was a historic moment in Ireland because no king or queen from the United Kingdom had visited Ireland in almost 100 years. And you think about how close Ireland is to England and the United Kingdom. It was never really possible for a king or queen of England to visit Ireland throughout that whole period. But because the peace process had been successful, in 2011, the Queen visited Ireland for the first time. And that was a hugely historic week in Ireland for two reasons. One, because the Queen visited, but also the President of the United States, Barack Obama, visited at that time as well. So within the space of 5 days, we had two of the most historic days in Ireland, and it was really, really big week. It also happened to be the week I was doing my final exams in college, so I didn't get to see any of it, I'm afraid. Our relationship with the United States is really, really important. The United States has been a really important partner for us throughout the history of my state the last 100 years. This is a photograph from when the Speaker of the US House, Nancy Pelosi, visited the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland last year before Brexit was still going on. And that was really important for us, that somebody, a very, very senior leader in the United States would come and visit the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. And after her visit to the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland, the Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, made a really strong case for, that when the United Kingdom left the European Union, that they left in a way that meant you didn't have to have a physical border between Ireland and Northern Ireland, because from our perspective, people go back and forth across that border between Northern Ireland several times a day, thousands and thousands of people just going back and forth across the border. And some people in Northern Ireland identify as Irish, and some people identify as British. But I don't think either of those communities want the inconvenience of a border between Ireland and Northern Ireland on such a small island, So the Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, visiting Ireland last year was a very important thing for us. This is just another photograph of Michel Barnier, who is the lead negotiator for the European Union and our Prime Minister. So I'm gonna, before I go on to the next, does anybody have any questions at this point? And how am I doing for time?
Your time's fine. What got you interested in doing this for a living?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I went to college in Ireland. My parents hadn't gone to college, so it was a big achievement for myself and my brother and sister just to go to college. It was really, really important to my parents. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do for a career. And I studied business and commerce in college originally in Dublin. And during the time I was in college, there was a major recession in Ireland and all throughout the world, really, really bad global recession. And there's lots of unemployment in Ireland. And in my last year of college, it was a really, really tough time in Ireland because our economy got so bad that the IMF, a big global organization, has come in and saved the Irish economy. And so there weren't a lot of job opportunities as I was finishing up college, but I got really lucky and I got offered a job to go work for another part of the Irish government that tried to promote trade. And I was stationed in a trade office in Boston, Massachusetts. And we were co-located with the Consulate in Boston. And I liked my job in Boston doing the trade stuff, but I was sitting next door to the guys in the Consulate and the guys and girls in the Consulate, and I thought that their job just sounded really, really interesting, really varied. They did a little bit of trade stuff, but they also did lots to promote Irish culture. They did lots on political reporting, which I found interesting. They did they provided services to their citizens. You know, if their citizens got in trouble, if an Irish citizen ended up in hospital, you know, they played a really important role in, you know, supporting that family back in Ireland if they had a family member who was in trouble in the United States. So you know, public service. I really wanted to work in public service. I didn't really know what an embassy or consulate did until I was living in Boston and I was working next door to it. Yeah, from that experience, I wanted to join the Irish Foreign Service, but the economy was still really bad in Ireland, and the Irish Foreign Service, they weren't hiring, and they don't think they wanted me at the time. So I went off. I worked in the college in Boston for a few years, got some more experience, and then applied through to the Foreign Service about 3 years ago to join the Foreign Service. So it was a long road, but that's good. I think if you can, you know, I think there's a huge expectation on people in high school or even in college to know exactly what you want to do with the rest of your life. And sometimes the best thing to do is, you know, get out there and meet people, and you know, you'll find, I think, what you're passionate about. I didn't know I was passionate in foreign affairs until I lived in Boston. Any other questions? Yes.
You said there were 7 consulates. Have you been to all 7? Because you said you were in Boston.
Yes. Yeah, and I've been to most of them. Yeah, we just opened one in Los Angeles about 2 months, about just before Christmas last year. So I haven't been to that one yet. Yeah, but I worked next door to the consulate in Boston. I've been to our consulate in Chicago. Sometimes I go to New York for training courses because that's our biggest consulate. So when we do training courses, it's usually the consulate in New York. We have one in Atlanta. I haven't been to Atlanta. And then we have one in San Francisco. So I have been to San Francisco, yeah. And then our embassy is in Washington. So, yeah. Yes.
Why was Austin chosen? Is there a large Irish American population in Austin?
Yeah, really good question. So we're very unusual that we're the only European country with a consulate here in Austin. Most other countries will have their consulate in Houston, in Texas. Some in Dallas, but mostly in Houston. And yeah, I guess we opened 5 years ago. And at the time, you know, Austin was the best city for us because there are sizable Irish communities in San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, and you know, in Austin too. And you know, Central Texas, central location means that we can service those cities quite well from Austin. But we cover 7 states from here, so you know, Austin was chosen for that reason as well, because there was flight links to some of the other cities that we visit quite often. Later this week, I'm going to Tulsa, Oklahoma for St. Patrick's Day Festival. And then the same, I'm going to New Orleans then on Saturday and Sunday for more St. Patrick's Day celebration. So Austin's very connected, so that's another important factor, you know. And it's the state capital, you know, and we are trying to improve our contacts with people who are, you know, going to be in politics, not right now, but in 20 years' time. So, you know, to be close to the state capital is important for that reason.
Are you always like flying, or are you like, where's your home?
Yeah, so I'm here. It's a good question. I ask myself that sometimes too. So in the Foreign Service, you get assigned to an embassy or consulate for a number of years. So I've been assigned to the consulate here for a 3-year period, and I've been here for about 1.5 years. And sometimes you can get extended for maybe 1 extra year, but you're never really more than anywhere for 4 years.
Wow. So
that is a challenge working in the Foreign Service. It's you know, your family, or you know, my family are back in Ireland, so it can be that can be the tough part, you know. The good thing is, you know, when you work in the Irish Foreign Services, you always get back to Ireland from time to time. So home is still Ireland, but Texas is great too. You know? Yes.
Real quick question. Native language in Ireland, is that something that's taught in schools, or like do people learn it from like their families and their culture?
Yeah, great question. So the official language of Ireland is Irish, but most people speak English every day. Yeah, there's when you're in elementary school, middle school, high school, you have to study Irish and English. It's mandatory to study Irish. So yeah, you have to study both languages. I'm from Dublin, and there wouldn't be a lot of native Irish speakers, people speaking Irish every single day in Dublin. There are regions on the west coast of Ireland which are Irish language regions, and everything is done through the Irish language. But it is something that is kind of regrettable in some ways, is that not everybody in Ireland is fluent in Irish, and my Irish is okay, but it's not fluent, which is not. It's quite unusual. We have our language is linked so much to our culture, and there is a big revival at the moment going on where people are trying to reconnect with the Irish language. My mother is about to retire, and every summer she goes to Donegal, which is kind of in the northwest of the island, and she goes to an Irish community and spends 2 or 3 weeks with her friends, just trying to practice the Irish language, because it's a regret of my mother that her Irish is not better. So people are trying to improve, but yeah, it is it is our official language, but not everybody speaks it.
Can you teach us a word?
Yeah, sure. So dia ditch is hello. Dia ditch, yeah. Dia ditch. 2 separate words, so dia and then ditch. I can probably show you, but let me see if I have any. I'm not sure if I have any of these slides in here.
You can write on the thing.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Teach him. I don't know.
Do it, Jada.
How do you do it?
Go ahead. Well, maybe I'll just open a document.
Oh,
and
it's
type it
easy
in,
right
yeah.
there.
Okay, so if I wanted to say hello, I would say dia ditch.
DUID.
Let me go this up. So dia ditch.
Oh, yeah, like the name.
Yeah.
Oh, I was expecting to see an H somewhere.
Yeah, the pronunciation is quite strange. And then if I wanted to ask somebody what their name is, I would say Cod is Anam ditch. So ditch is the Irish word kind of for you. So when we looked at the word dia ditch, which was hello, it actually literally translates as God on you. Dia is the Irish word for God, and ditch is kind of you. So it's kind of like peace be with you, or God be with you. That's kind of a historical thing. It's not really. It's not really a religious thing, Codis Anam ditch means what is the name on you, is the literal translation, and the response would be cod is the word for what, is, anam is name, and ditch is on you or you. So it literally translates is what is the name upon you. And then the response would be, so in my case, it would be Paul, or my Irish name is Paul, is Anam, Dum, and Dum is kind of me. So I would say Paul is Anam Dum. So if I asked Codis Anam ditch, your response would be your name, and then you would say is Anam Dum. Anybody want to try it?
Yeah.
So Codis Anam ditch.
Jada is Anam Dom.
Very good. Very good.
Good job, Jada.
Well done. Anybody else want to try it? No? What other words can I teach you? Fáilte is the Irish word for welcome. So if somebody came into your house or your home, you might say fáilte. Fáilte, yeah. The most common expression you might see around is Céad Míle Fáilte, which means 100,000 welcomes. So that's kind of the unofficial motto of Ireland is Céad Míle Fáilte, which means 100,000 welcomes. Céad is the Irish word for 100, Míle is the Irish word for 1,000, and Fáilte is welcome. So Céad Míle Fáilte. And then to say thank you, you would say Go Raibh Ma. I got Go Raibh Ma. Yeah.
Can you say a sentence for us?
So I would say Paul is Anam Dom. Paul is my name. Or I could say is Misha Paul. Or I might say Tá mé ina Coney I Austin. I am living in Austin. Or I might say I'm will to a Kainta Skelga, which means do you speak Irish?
Say it again.
I would say on will to a Kaint Skelga. Can you speak Irish? And the response is the Sha. Yeah, Sha Tá mé a Kaint Skelga. I'm talking in Irish. It's fun language. If I can share some resources with Mr. Cunningham, there are online resources if you want to learn a few words. There are some music videos. There's some there's a very big tradition in Ireland when you're a teenager is to go to a Gael-talked region for the summer and spend the summer just learning the Irish language. And we would say, so people go there to these kind of summer camps and they study Irish for the summer. And one of the big things they do is translate pop music into Irish. So there's some cool videos with like Avicii songs, and I don't know if Avicii's still cool, but he was cool a few years ago. And in Irish. Yes, there's so there's some really cool Irish rap bands. Yeah, it's actually really popular at the moment. There's an Irish rap scene. Unfortunately, South by Southwest was cancelled. We were supposed to be having a couple of Irish rappers coming over from South by Southwest. Unfortunately, that's not happening this year. But yeah, there's I'll send an email to Professor Cunningham with some information about the Irish language and Irish music if you're interested. Sorry?
Oh, I listened to the rapper Slow Tie, and he's from like Northampton, but his dad's English.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Cool. I was living away for so long. When I came back to Ireland, I lived in Boston for 6 years. I moved back to Ireland for a year. And when I went back to Ireland, all my friends were listening to all this rap music, but through the Irish language, which seems to have got really popular.
Rap is something.
Sorry?
Rap something for us.
Oh, no. I draw the line there. Don't want to hear me singing, though.
Oh, do y'all have like a national, wait, our national anthem?
No, there.
Oh, do y'all have a national anthem?
Yes, we do, yeah. And it's in Irish. Yeah.
Do you know it by heart?
I do.
Yeah, I do.
Let me see. So it doesn't really translate that well, okay, but it's actually called it's called Aran Naveen, and that translates as the soldier's song. So the song kind of goes back to when we were looking for independence, you know, and I will send a great link to much more capable than me singing it. Or I can show you a video of it if you'd like, but you don't want to hear me sing it. So like a lot of that would be, you know, our national anthem is in Irish. All of our, you know, I said earlier, our president isn't really called the president, he's called Lieutenant, which is the Irish word for president. His residence is called Oris Lieutenant, which is the place of the president.
Oh, we have about 10 minutes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I could go talking about Irish stuff all day, but Irish language stuff first. We'll keep going. So a big thing at the moment is for Ireland is we're campaigning for a seat on the United Nations Security Council. So the Security Council is made up with a number of countries, some permanent members and some temporary members. And countries, small countries like Ireland, are not permanent members of the Security Council of the United Nations, but we're campaigning for a seat on the Security Council at the moment. And it's been a really good exercise for Ireland because it's really getting us to think about what is Ireland on a global stage. And you know, these are kind of the three things that we these are kind of the three things that, the three messages that we're kind of campaigning for a seat on the United Nations Security Council. The way it works in the United Nations to get on the Security Council is every member of the United Nations, every country has one vote. So it doesn't matter if you're as big as the United States or China, or you're as small as Ireland or Malta, or you think of any small country. Every country has one vote for who gets on the Security Council. And Ireland is campaigning for a seat on the Security Council at the moment. And we're competing against Canada and Norway. So it's been a really good exercise because it gets us to think about, what is Ireland? What are we bringing to the United Nations? Why does the world want Ireland on the Security Council of the United Nations? And we think that's because of, empathy. We have a long history of people doing volunteer work all over the world. And we also have a long track record of peacekeeping. So Ireland has the longest track record of sending people on United Nations peacekeeping missions than any other country in the world. We've been doing it for about 62 years now. The longest unbroken commitment to UN peacekeeping projects. But we have an empathy. We had a major famine in Ireland about 150 years ago. And that's why there are so many people of Irish descent in the United States, because so many people fled Ireland during that famine. So, we feel like that history that is, very much part of our living history today gives us an empathy to kind of, represent smaller countries on the Security Council of the United Nations. Partnership, so we're really committed to multilateralism. We believe in multilateral responses to global problems. And independence is the other thing. We're a neutral country. We don't participate in, we're not a member of NATO, and we don't participate in conflicts overseas. We do have a defense forces, but the only work they do overseas is those peacekeeping missions for the United Nations. So we feel like that independence would be valuable in the Security Council of the United Nations. If I have time, I want to click this video, and I'm hoping the computer will connect to my Wi-Fi, because this is a really cool video about our campaign for the Security Council of the United Nations, but it gives you a good sense about what Ireland is about. Let me see if I can get this up.
All right, guys, get off the Wi-Fi.
No, it's Avian thing.
Oh.
We were picking up, no, that's it.
Well, I'm trying to connect here. Do you have any more questions about Ireland while we're trying to get this connected? Or any questions about what I do? Yes.
There's like mandatory services in Ireland.
You mean in the foreign service or in military? Or?
Like military.
No, we don't have any mandatory service, any mandatory public service of any type. Yeah, we don't. Some European countries do, but not Ireland.
What's the largest misconception of Ireland that you face?
I would think that there's probably an oversimplicity about our culture. We really have a really rich history in the arts, and we great poets and writers and musicians, and I think sometimes people think of Irish culture as St. Patrick's Day and people drinking maybe green beer. So that is a big challenge that we have to. Ireland is a modern, dynamic country. We're an outward-looking country, and we have rich culture, and it's trying to get that out there, I suppose, is one of the biggest challenges.
Janet, did you have a question?
Oh, yeah. I had a question.
Yes.
What are the different religions in Ireland, or is the British influence the biggest one?
Yeah, good question. In terms of religion, so until about 20 years ago, Ireland was a country of emigration, people leaving all the time, and not many people coming there because there wasn't a lot of job opportunities. So 20 years ago, we were largely we were almost entirely a Christian country, and there was a majority of Catholics, a smaller number of Protestants, particularly in the northern part of Ireland, but all throughout Ireland. I think 20 years later, Ireland has become a place where we welcome people from all over the world to come and live and work in Ireland, and study in Ireland, and because of that, there are a lot more religions in Ireland now. But it would still be a majority Christian country. But there is a separation between religion and our government. At one time in our history, the Catholic Church had a very prominent role in our government and a lot of influence on our government. That's not the case today. It's not the case today.
Okay, so then some of the native religions that were there before the Protestants and the Catholics came are no longer practiced?
You mean the people from Ireland who? Yeah, I think I don't know huge amounts about attendance numbers, but anecdotally, yeah, I mean people attending church on a weekly basis has declined in the last 20 years. I mean, one example of that was the Pope visited Ireland in 1978, and at the time there was probably just over 3 million people in Ireland, and 1 million people showed up to see the Pope visit Ireland in 1978. The Pope visited Ireland about a year and a half ago.
A lot of protests.
Well, not in 1978.
No, now.
Yes, so about a year and a half ago, the Pope visited Ireland again, and there was probably somewhere between 100 and 200,000 people came to see him. And there was some people that were protesting against the church because some people feel that the church had too much influence in our history. So yeah, the role of the church in Ireland has changed an awful lot in the last 20, 30 years.
Wasn't there a lot of sex abuse?
There was, yeah, there was. There was incidents of sexual abuse in the Catholic Church, in particular in Ireland, and a lot of people lost trust in the institution of the Catholic structures in Ireland because of that. So there would be a lot of people in Ireland that might consider themselves still spiritual or still religious, but they have stopped going to Catholic masses because they were very disappointed by how children were abused by some members of the Catholic Church in the 70s, 80s, 90s.
Oh, we're going to have to, the bell's going to ring in about 30 seconds.
Yes, yeah, I'm afraid we're not going to get this video up, but that's okay. I'll share it with Mr. Breen.
I'll be back. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
That was really incredible.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Heritage. You got it?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's okay, because we also have something called Affinity Irish. So if you're interested in Irish culture, Irish language, anything like that, you're officially Irish Affinity, and we welcome that too. So. Yes. Yeah.
I was like, all right, thank you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. What's up?
Well, in Ireland,
Are we ever going to see that
soccer league,
therapist this second?
but
Are we ever going to see the sex therapist?
sports leagues in the UK? So Manchester United. Would you? Yeah, I'm sure it's cool. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Jason.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Yeah.
Oh, yay!
Great.
Thank you
so
nice
much.
to meet
Yeah,
you.
lovely to
Thank
meet you.
you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks
Oh,
so much.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for coming.
Mr. Cunningham, I think this was like one of the best diplomats.
Yeah.
I agree.
Mike,
The German
Yeah,
was
thank
like-
you, Adrian.
Thank you.
I want to send a warm greeting from Lima, Peru to our friend Paul Breen,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And just so we got this,
friend Adrian in South Africa too.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
just say,
I wanted to ask Mr. Paul Breen, what is the position of Ireland about the Brexit?
okay, just say, we can see you now, okay? Go ahead.
It's good. Where am I looking?
You just talk right into the camera.
Oh.
I'll get you this way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I can move here, yeah. It's good here.
Thank you.
So, yeah, it's a really good question. I think the question was, what is the position of Ireland on Brexit? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, it's been a huge issue for us since the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union in 2016. We really regretted their decision to leave in the first place. We would have, you know, we're committed to the European Union, and we would have wished that the United Kingdom would have decided to remain in the United Kingdom. And we campaigned for that actively at the time in 2016. But we respected the decision of the people of the United Kingdom and the decision of their referendum. And we have spent the last 3.5 years trying to ensure that their departure is, you know, causes the minimum amount of disruption to the people on the island of Ireland. And that has focused on a number of different areas. The first priority was the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. You know, the peace process in Northern Ireland is a new phenomenon. It's only existed for the last 20 years. And we really wanted to protect the peace process in Northern Ireland throughout the whole Brexit process. The other thing was trade. You know, our trade between Ireland and the United Kingdom is obviously really important. And in fact, a lot of our goods, as they're shipped to other parts of the European Union, transit through the United Kingdom. So we've been looking for a solution that would cause minimum amount of disruption to trade. So they were our priorities going into this whole process. I suppose what has happened since then, you know, obviously the British held an election in December. Prime Minister Johnson won, you know, obviously that election, and the United Kingdom departed the European Union on the 31st of January. The conversation now shifts toward trade negotiations and the future trading relationship between the European Union and the United Kingdom, and indeed, you know, other trading relationships that the United Kingdom might strike up with the United States or other regions. We really want to see that Ireland's interests are protected throughout that. Again, we're really looking at the border. You know, the withdrawal agreement that was negotiated late last year, and we can live with the protocols in that agreement in terms of what it will mean for the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. But you know, there's a long way to go this year on trade negotiations. There's a deadline in the summer for what can go into the final agreement, and then it's supposed to be negotiated by the end of the year. It's going to be a very, very challenging time frame. But the Irish government and the European Union member states, we feel that you know, we're you know, committed to seeing that this is a seamless and has the least amount of disruption possible for the people of Ireland.
And personally, do you agree with that position, the official position of your government?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I represent my government, so I mean, I always have to give the official position. But yeah, I mean, if you're asking me what my personal view of the European Union is, I mean, the European Union transformed Ireland dramatically in all areas of life: education, protections for workers, access to the single market, you know, and we are a small open economy that can't afford to be breaking away from a trading relationship as important as our EU membership. So for us, and my personal view is that the European Union has been a great thing for Ireland, and surveys back that up. last year there were a number of surveys conducted amongst the people of Ireland about their attitudes towards European Union membership, and it varied from 85% to 93% of the population in support of our EU membership. So we really wish the United Kingdom hadn't left the European Union. It would have been a lot better. And personally, I wish, I have family in the United Kingdom, and I would have wished that they hadn't left the European Union. But you know, we are where we are, and we have to, you know, make the best of the situation.
Would this be an opportunity for Northern Ireland and Ireland to join it back together, you think?
So there's been a lot of talk about that.
Adrian, do you have any other question about this topic?
Adrian,
I think so.
Adrian, you have a question? In the meantime, Adrian, you formulate your question, but I was going to ask him, what about reunification between Northern and Southern Ireland? Or the Irish Republic and Northern Ireland?
Adrian, what is your position?
I have a question, but I also have a point to make to the speaker's reference to things historical. I'm also one of the descendants of the Vikings, because my great-great-great-grandparents, my ancestors came from a Northern Europe area, the Essen and Germany. And it's a very interesting fabric, because if you look at the Anglo-Boer War in 1899, where my grandfathers fought against the British, there were Irish guys fighting for the British, some other guys from France and Russia as well. But at this time, if you fast forward to 1980, in the Rhodesian War, there were also Irish and Welsh guys, Russian guys involved there. But I want to tell you something very interesting. Referring to the Anglo-Boer War, there was one of the Irishmen fought with the Boers against the British. He spent some time in the United States, where Chief Geronimo taught him military strategy, battlefield tactics. And this Irishman came to South Africa. He married an Afrikaans girl, but he taught the Boer warriors, Afrikaans, Boerevechters, the tactics that Geronimo taught him. Just a last note, my daughter-in-law is an Irish girl. She married my son 5 years ago. They live happily ever after, just close where I am now.
That's great. It's great. The point about Irish people fighting, and I think both sides of conflicts, is yeah, that is quite common. I think you know, even Ireland had a move for independence during the First World War, and there was Irish people divided at the time whether the best way to get some type of independence was to fight for the British Army overseas and hope that they might give us a type of independence in return for participating in those conflicts. And then there was those that felt that shouldn't be the approach. So I mean, in several conflicts around the world, Irish people have found themselves on both sides of things in history. The Spanish Civil War would be another example of that. The American Civil War as well, there would have been Irish on both sides of that conflict. So yeah, it's interesting to hear that about the Boer War and some of the other conflicts that you mentioned, because that I have seen that in other parts of history as well.
One thing Paul might be mentioning, that Irish have been mercenaries for many years because they didn't have jobs and stuff, so that's one way you could make money was to go fight.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you see there's in a lot of countries in South America as well, there was, and Central America, for centuries before Ireland was independent, there was Irish people traveling there to join military forces and things like that, not that common in 2020.
Oh, no. But I mean, my relatives came, my great-grandfather came from County Cork.
Yeah.
To New Jersey, and then moved from New Jersey to Illinois, and then Illinois to Utah, than Minnesota, and then I came down here. But it's very it's not uncommon to see people move from Ireland, and then even like he said, there's probably 70, 75 million Irish people outside the country. And it's one of the few countries where that, Norway and Armenia, where the people have left are a lot greater than the people who have stayed.
One of the important things that I've learned in my life as a younger man, that the Irish people love music. So when I was a young guy, I used to do a lot of mountaineering in Cape Town. If you look at the pictures of Table Mountain, it's a beautiful mountaineering spot. And I climbed a lot with the Irish guys. And I can remember they all had day jobs like myself. And during the weekends, we went mountaineering or rock climbing. And what the best part of it was when you got home in the evenings, they set up a couple of glasses of Irish coffee, and they put up their music, the Irish music, and the atmosphere with the Irish guys and their music. It was just beautiful.
That's great to hear. It's wonderful.
I am very happy because Paul Breen is my first friend from the beautiful island of Ireland. Thanks for your time. Thank you for your wonderful explanation. The work that you do by visiting schools, it's a great inspiration for other diplomats or people who work in different consulates and are able to visit public schools to let us know more about your country, your position about international affairs, your foreign policy, all that stuff. I am from Peru, and I congratulate Mr. Cunningham for making this kind of video conferences possible. Really, it's a nice experience to listen the deep questions that Mr. Adrian Mayor used to make. My warm up from Peru, Adrian. You are a very intelligent man. I admire you.
Thank you very much. It's reciprocal.
A lot of blarney.
Fantastic.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
See you.
Bye.